At this point, we've all heard, you all remember, how during an election year, it was revealed that federal agencies were snooping on your parishes, especially if you were a traditional Catholic. In fact, most exclusively if you were a traditional Catholic. This would happen at an FSSP parish here and there. It would happen at an SSPX parish. It didn't really matter what group it was. Presumably, this even happened at sedevacantist parishes. It didn't really matter what traditional Catholic group you belong to, because while we all have strong opinions about this stuff, generally speaking, which group is better than the rest, to the outsiders, to the enemies of the church, they're all the same thing to them. They don't care about our little squabbles about whether the ordinations of priests and consecration of bishops in 1988 by Archbishop Lefebvre was valid or not. Doesn't matter to those who serve the devil in the echelons of government. They look at all of us as one and the same. They could not care less about our own internal differences. This should give you pause the next time you get into an uncharitable argument online with somebody who has a different opinion than you do about the SSPX or sedevacantism, or whether Benedict XVI was the last legitimate pontiff, or whatever else issue du jour we all tend to get into heated debates about. Because the other thing worth mentioning here is the snooping on our parishes hasn't stopped. I hate to be the one to tell you that. The chances that it's stopped are non-existent. Maybe it's been taken up by more local officials, especially in areas hostile to anything vaguely conservative. But it hasn't stopped. It's time to stop pretending that it has. Those at your parish who handle security things, typically it's going to be your ushers, but some parishes, like mine, have overtly somebody there who is doing security during Mass. They have a heavy burden on them. They and those who are organizing those kind of efforts at your parish. So please keep them in your prayers. They need your prayers. Now, with that having been said, we go to Catholic News Agency with this headline: Judiciary Committee, Federal Police spied on Catholic priest for not divulging info on a parishioner. Short version of the story. Priest was approached for information about a parishioner, and the priest's like, no, I'm not going to help you. You might not think that was prudent. I'm going to remind you that the priest has no duty to give people information about parishioners unless they have a warrant. Okay? He has no duty to help the servants of Satan go after the church. None whatsoever. The priest stood up for his parishioner. Perhaps if the agents had gone and used the actual more transparent system that our founders in their wisdom established, and that through various mechanisms of judicial law have evolved over time to ensure that there is something approaching due process and transparency for this, maybe if they'd gone that route, we wouldn't be talking about this today. And there would be a whole lot of other issues that became electoral hot button issues last year and are going to be next year as well. Those wouldn't have happened. So let's go to the article, because this is a fascinating story. It really, really is. From the article, quote, the Richmond office of the federal police spied on a priest because he refused to discuss private conversations he had with a parishioner who was converting to Catholicism, according to a July 22nd report from the House Judiciary Committee. According to the report, the Richmond office investigated the priest's background, monitored his travel plans, and looked into his credit card information. This investigation was allegedly launched after the priest became uncomfortable with an agent's questions about a parishioner and said he would need to speak to the church's leadership and an attorney before answering questions. There appeared to be no legitimate law enforcement purpose for investigating this priest, the report determined. This new information suggests that the agency's religious liberty abuses were more widespread than they initially admitted and led the public to believe. And mostly, quote, they have been lying about this since they got into hot water politically. They've been lying to their new FBI director. They've been lying this whole time. Don't be shocked by this. That it's the only thing that's going to shock people is this is still going on, and you shouldn't be shocked by this either. And I know I take the uncomfortable position that this is still happening, because I don't think those who hold those positions, who can make these decisions, care who is running their agency at this time. They don't. They don't care if it's Mr. Patel. They don't care if Mr. Mangino is involved in it. They don't care. They believe they'll be gone in about 2 years. Might be in for a rude awakening. We'll see. It's a long time to forecast how an election is going to go, and we don't know what the dynamics are of it yet, but they may be in for a rude awakening. But even then, it'll probably still happen anyway, because there's a sort of an embedded problem, we'll say. Very embedded, deep problem, and that agency is at the core of it. The story doesn't get any better either, because this was a traditional priest. The report provided to CNA by Ohio Representative Jim Jordan's office, and that's the representative who's been leading this for like 2 years now, the investigation into this, offers more details about the extent to which that agency investigated so-called radical traditionalist Catholics. Their investigation into supposed radical traditionalist Catholic ties to far-right national movements was first revealed to the public through a leaked Richmond memo in February 2023. Although the agency under former President Joe Biden quickly disavowed the document when it came to light and asserted it was a single product of a single field agency, information unveiled by the Judiciary Committee shows the investigatory efforts into Catholics was more widespread and that the national headquarters was involved, meaning it went all the way to the president. In the report, the committee states that the Richmond agency was working with the national headquarters to develop an agency-wide document on radical traditionalist Catholics, which was ultimately shelved. The headquarters and other field offices also coordinated with the Richmond investigation of the previously mentioned priest. The 2023 memo cited the Southern Poverty Law Center for the definition of radical traditionalist Catholicism. But the new committee report says the field office relied on, quote, several radical anti-religious materials from organizations that, quote, spewed radical left-leaning ideology to inform the agency apart from just the SPLC. The CNA reached out to that agency for comment, but did not receive a response by time of publication. Emails uncovered by the committee show that the Richmond agency allegedly coordinated with the national agency's counter really bad things division, the Louisville field office, and the international London field office in its investigation in Richmond area priest who belongs to the SSPX. And then it goes into like the SSPX's status. I only included that so that people will not say, oh, you were hiding that it was an SSPX priest. They do not care about the differences between the SSPX and the FSSP, and I know this because I've asked around to people who are in the know at FSSP parishes, and they all say they had this happen at their parish too. They do not care about the differences, and maybe we should take a cue from our adversaries. This is one of the reasons why I will say, yes, I'm pro-SSPX. I'm also pro-FSSP. I think the divisions internally need to be handled by the bishops of the SSPX working behind the scenes with the Vatican to try to sort this stuff out. And that for most lay people, it's not something we need to worry about too much. And that, yes, you can go to Mass with the SSPX. The Vatican has said so repeatedly. Maybe you should believe them. It's not that big of a deal. Our adversaries don't see a difference between us. Maybe we should take them and take their cues into consideration. But it hasn't stopped. It's not going to. Not until that agency is either torn down to the basic foundations, or until there is a radical reform effort undertaken that I don't think there's the political capital to do right now. Maybe things will change. I'm curious what you think about this. Let me know in the comments. Do you disagree with me that you think they do see a difference and that we should be fine with it happening to an SSPX priest because fill in the blank weird things people believe about them? I'm not saying the SSPX are perfect. They are a priestly fraternity filled with human beings who are sinners just like everybody else, who are in need of the grace from God to become saints, and they need to cooperate with that grace like everybody else. And they've had their share of problems, as we all know. That doesn't mean they should be snooped on by those who should be spending their resources, their taxpayer-supported resources, pursuing more important issues like 300,000 young people they can't account for. Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. So like and subscribe if you haven't, it does help. Sharing this on social media helps too. If you ever thought about supporting the work we do here at Return to Tradition, there are options in the description box below where you can hit that subscribe plus button. That's the old join button. All the options, Patreon, Subscribe Star, those kind of things have all been asked for by viewers of this channel. They do help keep these daily messages coming, and your support is greatly appreciated. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.